and then you get a Debian package here, and I'm running dpackage-i to get the information, like dependencies, and then at the end it showed where the files were going to be installed on the disk. Okay, so that's one way of doing it. There's actually many ways of doing it. A more proper way of doing it is to use a tool called sbuild. This is going to use deb bootstrap to create a little chroot environment for you, a kind of a clean environment for, it allows you to target a specific distro. Now, there are some issues that I've run into this. I have not really been able to get this working on an RPM-based distro due to some weird permission things. This works okay, on Debian or Ubuntu as a host system, but if you want to run this on Fedora, Arch, or Gentoo, or anything else, I recommend you just use a container image. It's just easier, and it's doing more or less equivalent, in my opinion. Okay, so RPM, how am I doing on time? Okay. Oh. Sorry, lock screens. Okay, about halfway through. Okay, so let me hurry up. So basically you have, you put the spec file in the right structure and run RPM build A. Again, you probably can't actually see that, unfortunately. It's a little bit too bright in this room. But basically, it's going to go ahead and copy, do these instructions here, copy things in the right spot that it's expecting, run this command, and at the end, you're going to get an RPM package. Okay, so a more proper way of doing this, again, is to use mock. It will do something very similar. It's going to get a chroot set up for you in that particular environment that you're targeting. But again, you can just use the container image as a kind of a easier way to doing this. This is the more proper way of doing it. So let's talk about versioning. Okay, this is something that's really, I find to be really important, at least in my opinion. Versioning is a really crucial part of releasing software. So there's nothing really intrinsically special about like what your versioning is, as long as you are consistent, and a few other kind of key concepts, like you're monotonically increasing, which basically means that you are going up. Now, sometimes you do need to like have releases for backporting release and stuff like that, and that is important as well. But in general, this is a good way of kind of versioning your software. So now, one thing to keep in mind is there's a huge difference between software that you are like maintaining the software itself versus when you're a third-party packager, where you can't really actually have too much control over the versioning, but you have some control. So usually there's something like a release version or revision or something along those lines. But it's really important, don't reuse version numbers. It's really confusing. Now you're asking your users to run like MD5 or a SHA-256 to see, is this the version you have? Or no, maybe this is the version you have. Again, if you're packaging for software that's like outside of the software that you're actually developing, just bump the release version. Start from 1, go to 2, etc. Now, there's another thing you can bump called the epoch value on the RPM side. The default is 0. Keep it 0. This is basically saying I'm going to break the glass, the emergency glass, and pull this lever when you bump this version, because now you're forcing other packages that are dependent to also bump their epoch, and it just becomes like kind of an all-out war of bumping the version there. Because you're basically saying, it's not like really a version in the normal sense. You're basically saying, let me go ahead and like reset the reality. Yeah, so anyway. So again, okay, so talking about uniqueness here. This is the easiest way to identify like what software version you have. So like don't overthink it, because it's both the uniqueness and going to be used for things like quantitative comparison, and it can also give you some other kind of indicators for the ecosystem, like is my thing ABI compatibility, or is it stable? But remember though, versioning is made up. That's right, as long as it's unique and monotonically increasing, and maybe if you follow this regex I'm going to show in a minute, the schema doesn't really matter. So, of course, you've heard of semantic versioning, and there's these kind of big push for semantic versioning, and each of the different fields has some meaning. Now the problem there, of course, is it has different meaning depending on which person you're talking to. There's cal versioning, which is kind of like you're saying, okay, this software is version 2015.5. That's great to indicate you have a bunch of different software in a bundle. But basically all it tells you is this software is stale. This is software that is 10 years old. You can also use this to kind of indicate what stream. Is this a beta software? Is this stable, long-term support? There's other ways to indicate this, but you can put this in the versioning. Okay, so, okay, good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. Wait, what happened here? Why is 6 hiding? Because 7, 8, 9. That's a dad joke there for you. So, like I said earlier, it's good to have it monotonically increasing. Now, of course, sometimes you can't do that for other reasons. You need to use some time travel. But another thing here is you can have versioning like 5.1 and 5.10, and maybe you're thinking to yourself, okay, like I know that 5.1 is less than 5.10. But if you are writing your own version parser because you want to say, oh, I want to get the latest version, or I want to get the oldest version, or something along those lines, you might think, okay, I can just kind of convert these version strings that are kind of like floats using multiplication. Let me just multiply that by 10. Okay, so that's 51. Well, that also is 51, but that's not what I intended. So instead of writing your own, if you're using shell scripting, I recommend using something like /V. It will do the right thing. If you're using a language like Perl, there's version CMP. If you're using Python, there used to be a thing called disutils.version that's now deprecated. There's a package called packages that will allow you to kind of do that version comparison stuff. It's better to not, just like your own encryption, it's better to not roll your own. Okay, so now you can also have other characters in there. You see a lot of these version numbers that don't have like letters or whatever, right? But technically you can put letters in there, but again, is A less than Z? Or is it the same? Some of these are going to strip out these extra characters. Some of these are just, oh, so that you can see in the file name or whatever, like, oh, here, as a human, but package manager might not actually care about this. The fourth one here, maybe you have a schema that is like 1.2, so you say, okay, well, I have a major version and I have a minor version. But now in the next version, it's 1.2.3.4. That's changed because, of course, you can change that on a per build, even a per build basis. I know this is something that trips up some people that are doing some of the packaging of the software that I'm doing. Another thing here is, you have $400 or $500. Same kind of thing here. You might think, oh, let me just multiply this by 10 or 100 or 1,000 or whatever. But then you have to convert it back because maybe you're like doing a sort, right? And then you want to say, okay, well, let me grab the thing back. Well, now it's not the same. Maybe you get 400 back, but not 400.00. So again, this is back to the don't roll your own if you can. Okay. Now let's talk about some kind of character restrictions. That's a little bit hard to read, sorry. So if you're going to have software that is going to be packaged in the Debian format, the Debian format uses underscores as the field delimiters for the file name. So that means that you cannot have an underscore in your version. On the other side of the fence, because of course, there's always going to be a slight difference between Debian and RVM. Hyphens are the field delimiters. So don't use a hyphen in your version because it's not going to work. Another thing that I ran into recently is that in the Fedora packaging guide, they are now recommending you use the caret symbol to indicate packages that are considered snapshots, or what I call idempotent packages that don't really change. But curl doesn't like that because that's not technically a valid URL. So my current workaround is to use wget. So here's a regex pattern. If you can, I recommend you follow this regex pattern for your versioning. It's pretty common in a lot of software that you might be using already. And it kind of ticks all the normal boxes. So like, I know this might look a little bit messy. Basically, this is, you have like 1.2.3 or whatever, like any kind of combination there. That's what this regex pattern will do. Okay, so yeah, I think we're pretty good on time. So we play a game. Okay, so what I'm going to do is ask for some audience participation. I'm just going to ask you to call out a number from 1 to 18. And then as an incentive, I'm going to ask, then you can go and come up here and you can grab some swag. So I have some rulers, there's stickers, there's some pens, and there's some pins. So just come up here. So let's open it up. Oh, so originally it was going to be 99 problems like the talk, but that's a little bit too much. So again, let's stick with 18 of them. It's 17. Cool, thank you. You can, whenever you want, you can come up or you can grab something. Okay. So I'm a user. I'm installing the software using the instructions that you provided, but I get some other version of the software than what I expected. So pretty common, at least for me. So I also will open up to if anyone wants to like take a guess here, that you can also do that or not. Any guesses? It's open it. It's fine. Let's see what it is here. Okay, so you might have multiple packages that are providing the same dependency. They might even be in different repos. You might have this repo from the distro vendor and this repo from the hardware vendor, for example. And so you might get the wrong version according to basically to you, because the package manager just says hey this fulfilled the dependency based on the package graph. So in that case, the problem is a lot of users don't notice, because they'll run like apt or zypper or DNF with -y, and then they're like, oh, it runs through and downloads and installs, and they're like, oh, but I run whatever command and I see it's not the version I expected. If you can, you're interactive, pass like -v or -V or DNF is pretty verbose by default. To see what versions it's going to download. It'll tell you before it actually starts going and downloading and installing it. And that way you can say, okay, wait, something is wrong here. Maybe I need to add a pin file to make sure that one repo has higher priority over another, or in like yum and DNF, you can say disable repo, enable repo. There's other things you can do basically before like you've gone through the whole step of Okay, so I'm going to ask for the next number. Thank you. Okay. So you get this really like what's going on here. So I'm just trying to apt-get install something, and I get this error. So what this is here is you don't have the public key. Now it says here that the repo is not signed. That's not really true necessarily, but it stopped you because it couldn't verify that the repo was signed properly. Maybe you forgot to install the public key, or things have changed. For example, a GPT key rotation. I've done this once before, and I'm going to do it again eventually, so be prepared that things will break. The other thing that can happen here is, is that, there's also like, so there was a transition that's been going on to the deb 822 format on the Debian and Ubuntu side here, from the .list format to the .sources, and also before that was the apt key deprecation. So even for the .list files, you had to now specify this is the public key that I need for this particular repo, because in the past it was just one giant kind of key store. Okay, next number, please. Okay, so there's a couple problems here. Does anyone have any guesses? So problem number one, you're using yum. Uh, you should be using DNF now. You know, it's time. It's long overdue. The second thing here is you have file conflicts. Now you might have a config file here, and maybe you have this config file in package A and package B, and this might go on for weeks, months, years even, and you never get this. When do you get this? You get this when the config file has changed, because for RPM-based distros, they don't really care if they are identical. And so this might go on for a long time. Yeah, okay. Next number, please. Okay, so this is zypper. You're trying to remove some package, and you get these like warnings. They're really error messages. And this is update alternatives. Now, in my experience, update alternatives is great when it's working, and when it's not, it's not. So basically, if you're not familiar with this, you want to have the same software. Like, for example, if you have a database, like for example, like MySQL and MariaDB, but you want them to have the same executable, or you have libraries that can fulfill the same need, but they're at different versions, or there's a lot of different use cases here. But basically, this tool, Update Alternatives, will let you kind of from their tool change the symlink, and you can have a bunch of kind of child symlinks. And so if you have any typos or other issues, or you're trying to upgrade and maybe that file doesn't exist anymore, because it's not direct symlinks, it does a symlink to and /etc alternatives to the actual one. That way it has an intermediate, so you can kind of just flip between them. You get things like this. So be careful with update alternatives is my point. Oops, sorry. Okay, next one. Okay, so your app getting installed, and you get an error message like this. So you shouldn't really see this as an end user. This is something you'll see as a developer. And what this is you have a changelog file, and you didn't fill it in correctly. So the versioning is, for example, like 1.0.0, but then -1 or 2 or 3 or whatever, the revision field. So the idea here is that you have your software version and your package version. Package version, if you have, for example, a mistake in your package, you just can keep incrementing that rather than trying to affect the software version, because that might not be software that you actually control, or you don't want to change that software just for a packaging related issue. Okay, next one, and also feel free to come out up over here anytime and grab something. Sorry, what was the number? Thank you. So running dpackage install, as don't run this directly, but as part of you're running your apt get install, it's going to run underneath the scenes dpackage install, and you get an error message like this, trying to overwrite this file, which is also in package B. Now, this is similar to one of the previous ones we just went through on the RPM side. But even if the config files are identical, checksum identical, dpackage will not allow the same package to have the same config, same file in the same location. So you just can't do that. Okay. So next one, or I guess I can just go through them incrementally. Either way. 14. Thank you. Okay. So some packages could not be installed. That means you have you requested an impossible situation. So yeah, basically it's what it says. It's impossible, and that could be that you don't have the packages available. Maybe you don't have that repo that another repo enabled, or those packages been removed from the repo, or you forgot to generate those packages or they failed or whatever, like basically those packages don't exist. So it doesn't know what to do, it can't fulfill that request. Okay. Let's see, I'm not sure which ones we haven't gone through, so let me just kind of speed run this. Number 1. Okay. So you get this error message. Package A depends on package B at some version, but it's not going to be installed. That's a super helpful error message. It's not. So what it is, and there's usually actually there's a little bit more, but what it is you need to keep following the dependencies. So that's that recurse apt function that I showed earlier. Eventually you'll find the broken package, and you'll get something like this. Depends on this version, but it's not installable. Due to many reasons that maybe that package doesn't exist at that version, or it's a virtual provides, or one of the other like mistakes here, basically. Okay, again, I'm not sure what version, so let's just kind of go through this real quick. I think we've done this one already. 3. Have we done this one? I don't think we have, but basically the TLDR is that virtual provides are hard. Okay. So you get something like this, and I get questions about this one all the time. But again, it's telling you right there how to fix this. Run this because you have already installed either using apt or depackaged, and a lot of times it's through depackage-i, like as a manual step. Somebody has installed a package that has some broken dependencies, and it will let you do it, but it will then throw an error at the end. And apt at this point is broken. It will not allow you to install anything. You need to run this, and what this is going to do is it's going to remove those broken packages from your system, and then it'll let you go ahead and continue as is. I think we've already done this one. Okay, here's another fun one, and I already kind of covered this, but basically, as you can see kind of in the highlighted here, so it's got a bunch of stuff here, but nothing provides package E at this epoch version. Again, this is because somebody has bumped the epoch version from 0. Okay. So you're trying to install some package, add a version. Now, the hint here is that it says virtual package. You probably don't even know that. And apt will basically say, I don't know what to do. There are multiple packages here that can provide this. Now, if you only have one package in the repo that happens, it'll happen to work, and then later you add another package, and it stops working, and you're like, what happened? And this is because virtual packages on Debian cannot provide a version. You can have a virtual package name, but that's it. If you're trying to install a specific version, for example, here, you wouldn't actually try to run this command. You would say, okay, my package depends on this package at a certain version. And that's the equivalent here. And so it won't work. Now you can do this on the RPM side with DNF and zypper, and they'll know what to do, but apt will not. It'll just give up. Sorry, I meant to like cross out these numbers, but I kind of forgot. Okay. So I'm trying to DNF update using -s best, or it's kind of the default after, depending which distro you're using. But there's a version conflict here. And again, there's a hint there. You can use allow erasing, but what happened here is that there was a provides, and like these are actually all real problems. You won't see in the speaker notes, but these are all like have a bug associated with them. Provides was missing for the old package name. Now, when you are trying to rename a package, it's really important to follow this kind of pattern, which is conflicts, provides, obsoletes. Make sure you have all three of those when you're trying to rename a package, because otherwise you will find there's a bunch of edge cases like this. Now on the Debian side, I don't think I have a slide on this one, but there's this concept called transition packages, which will kind of help you rename a package kind of over time. The tricky thing there is you kind of have to keep that transition package, that kind of fake package, around for a while so that users can safely upgrade. Okay, let's see. I did this one already. So this one is that you had some packages that were dependent, but they were in a repo that you didn't control. 17? Okay, thank you. Okay, so again, another kind of scary message here, which is true, and basically you just follow what it says here. So it says basically you shouldn't be used. Now, AppKey is deprecated now. It's removed in Debian 12, and I believe it's Ubuntu 22.10. But if you were trying to do things like, okay, I'm going to run AppKey in the packaging, you'll get something like this. You'll also kind of get these scary messages if you're trying to script the apt command. You'll notice that all my commands here are apt-get. Apt is a little bit nicer, but it will give you these kind of these error message here about like it not being a stable API, kind of things like that. Okay, 15. Yeah. 16. Okay, so checksums don't match. In this case, a package was signed multiple times, and so it doesn't match. So again, a lot of these error messages are kind of obvious if you just actually read them, but users don't always do that. And sometimes as a developer, you also kind of ignore that over time because you're like, oh, I know better, but sometimes you really don't. Just actually, trust the package manager. Okay, we did that one already. Okay, this is the last one. Sorry. Okay, so you install a package. Now there's this concept called meta packages. And again, you might not even be aware that this package is a meta package. So what is a meta package? Basically, it's an empty package that depends on other stuff. And this is what we call an entry point to install a bunch of different software. And so then okay, I don't want this software anymore. I'm going to go ahead and remove this. Now, when you remove, you should always be using -s purge for apt. That way you're removing all the config files. But you think, okay, now I don't have this software anymore. But I still do. You run dpackage-l or you're checking your file system. You're like, well, I still have this. I thought I removed this. Again, if you're using -v or whatever to see like what it's doing, or you actually like watch the transaction, you'll see it didn't remove those packages because why would it? That's not how this works. The reason for that is they're just entry points. It's not going to remove those dependent packages. Now, if you go ahead and then after you remove this, you run apt-get auto remove again with -s purge, it'll go ahead and remove what they call orphans. I think it's more like Arch Linux terminology, but that'll go ahead and do what you expect it to do. But it's a two-step process here, and that throws off a lot of people. Okay, so I think we're about out of time. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm 2 minutes over. So if there's any questions, feel free to, I can call on you, or I can do it afterwards. Okay, thank your package maintainers. All the different ecosystems here. There's a lot of talks about Nix packages. It's community maintained repository with a lot of packages. PyPI, the Debian community, Fedora, EPEL, etc. Like, thank your package maintainers because they do a lot of hard work behind the scenes. So here's my plug. Recently we did an AMA, so you can check that out. And then here, and then in about a week from now, there's GTC. So I might see a few of you, hopefully, there. So yeah, that's all I got. And then I was kind of saving this in case I got heckled. So this is from like the old times here. It's a parody, so don't read into this too much. Yeah, this is called "Is Your Son a Hacker?" Some of you might remember this. If you're not familiar with it, then here you go. Yeah. Okay. Was there any questions or no? It's fine. Okay, thank you. There's still a lot of stickers up here, so feel free to come grab something. So, if you are doing a bunch of distro hopping, I recommend something like this. This is an IO, there's Zalman, a bunch of other things. Basically, it's a virtual CD-ROM. Of course, there are software alternatives to this kind of thing, but this thing has saved me so much time over the like 10 or 15 years. I just